All right, it is June 8th, 2021, and this is our City Council work session call into order. Just a notice to the public that City Council may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public for legal advice and discussion with any of the agendized items today. Well, today I would like to say the Pledge of Allegiance, which I haven't done in a while. I got my American flag tie and the mask to boot today. So if you all stand, if you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vice Mayor, would you mind reading our mission statement?
I would love to, thank you. The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Thank you. Ms. Salzberg, roll call.
Mayor Deasy?
Here.
Vice Mayor Daggett?
Here.
Councilmember Aslan?
I'm here.
Councilmember McCarthy?
Here.
Councilmember Salas?
Present.
Councilmember Shimoni?
Present.
Councilmember Sweet?
Here.
All right, got the whole crew. We're down to agenda item number 4, which is public participation. And I just want to let everyone know that during this section, we're unable to reply or ask questions because it's not agendized. So just want you to know that we can't give feedback in this section. I understand we have quite a few individuals coming in today on the call. So Ms. Salzberg or whoever's taking those calls, welcome to jump in here.
Thank you, Mayor. We are getting our first commenter on the line.
Excellent.
Jessica, do you want to go ahead and take?
Yes, Karen, you can go ahead and speak now.
All right. Thank you for hearing my comments. Honorable Mayor, DC, and council members, my name is Karen Wadsack, and I live at 1726 North Navajo Drive. And I'm calling in today to ask you to take stronger, more rapid action on bicycle and pedestrian safety. Like many bike commuters, I've been hit by a car. It was minor, and I was lucky, but it happens all the time. And the possibility of getting hit keeps people from getting on their bikes, even when they could otherwise get to work, school, or other places that they need to go by bicycle. We need more protected bike lanes in our city now. We need a commitment to clearing bike lanes as a priority that is just as high or higher than clearing car lanes. We need slower speed limits enforced in specific high-risk areas. Our city staff includes outstanding engineers and other professionals who can tackle this challenge if given the opportunity to do so. Let's pause all work advancing car-centric infrastructure funded by Proposition 419. During this pause, let's make time to prioritize the safety and accessibility of our streets for carbon-free pedestrians and cyclists. Please commit to bicycle and pedestrian safety and direct staff to protect bike lanes and reduce speed limits in high-risk areas before you go on your summer break in July. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Karen. Next public participant.
Mayor and Council, I have Shauna on the line. Shauna, you can speak.
All right, am I unmuted?
Yes.
First of all, thank you to the council and to Mayor DC for allowing me to speak today. My name is Shauna Heinches. I am an elementary school teacher here in town, and I've been a full-time bike commuter since 2005, year-round, all weather. And I'd like to speak on improving bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in town. Like I said, I've been primarily biking around town since 2005, and I've seen it get worse and worse every year. and not a whole lot of change has been made to make things safer. So this is important to me because it's my life. Because I do see it get worse every year. I'd like to stay here and raise a family here. It's important to me because I believe in the power of bicycle transportation. Okay, it has environmental reasons for health and fitness, for mental health, and just the pure joy it brings me in life. So I'd like to share, and you've probably already heard, we do have a petition going to reallocate some funds from, from Prop 419. So reallocate those funds to improving bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. We would like to install protected bike lanes on Beaver Street, San Francisco Street, Butler Avenue, and 4th Street by December 2022, and Milton Avenue and West 366 by December 2023. We would also like to see the speed limit reduced on Butler and Lone Tree to 25 miles per hour by August 2021. If you believe there are things that can be done now to make biking in Flagstaff safer, such as reducing speed limit, we've seen it happen in other cities, and it's effective in reducing bicycle fatalities. I believe in signage. I believe in making crosswalks more visible, and that these things could be done soon and cost effectively. And I also urge you to speed up a long-term plan for making bicycle transportation safer in Flagstaff. Okay, I also would like to urge you to take action before you go on break. Make some decisions now, as soon as possible. This is such an important issue for our town. We will submit our citizens petition so that this can be on the agenda next week. And we have somewhere around 500 signatures already. So pretty awesome for a little town just in 4 days. And that's all. I really appreciate your time, and I believe this is something we can do to make our town a safer place.
Thank you, Shauna.
All right, thank you too.
Next
I have-
public.
Go ahead. Very sorry about that. I have Scott on
Next
the line
public
for you.
participant.
Scott, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Deasy and City Council members. I'm calling you from Wheeler Park, right next to the vigil site for Joanna Wheaton, right across from City Hall. And I think this all hits a little home for us. But my name is Scott Heinches, and I own a local bike shop in Flagstaff, Arizona, Cosmic Cycles. The events of May 28th have shaken me and our community to the core. Lifetime year-round here in Flagstaff, having been one of the organizers of Flag Bike Party, have seen an organic bike passion grow throughout the community these last few years. We have been collecting signatures to reallocate funds from Prop 419 for safer bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. We feel this is a necessary change that must be acted upon immediately. It's of utmost importance that Flagstaff adapt with bicycle infrastructure as we mature into a new era. It is not only good for our city's overall appeal in a broad sense, it is necessary for citizen sustainability. We also ask you to quickly respond to speed limit adjustments on the stated streets stated on the petition we will submit tomorrow. I believe in the power of bicycles and the strength of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Next public participant, please.
Mayor and Council, I have John on the line. John, you're up to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. My name is John Daly, and I'm here to expand further on the petition that will be coming before Council. Let me start by telling you about the experience of gathering signatures for the petition at the farmers market last Sunday. I'm sure all of you have gathered signatures for your election efforts, so this should resonate with you. I'm not an activist, and I don't routinely do this kind of thing, I've worked the table once before, and it's generally an unpleasant experience. When people see that you want something, they avert their eyes, they walk faster, and they generally try to avoid talking to you. This was different. When we told people what the petition was for, the most common reaction from the citizens of our city, of all ages and races and genders and walks of life, was to stop in their tracks, tell us that this was long overdue, and rush to sign the petition. The citizens and voters want change, they want progress, and they want it now. As you've heard from other commenters, we are poised to spend vast sums of money on building out road and bridge infrastructure for a future where, under the Climate Action Plan, there will be less need to drive than there is today. We need to immediately pause spending on these initiatives so council can reevaluate and reprioritize our direction as a community, hopefully in the direction of better pedestrian and bike infrastructure. Let me tell you something else about the petition you're going to receive. A few of the signatures you get will be signatures of children. The citizen petition rules say nothing about age, and we figured that perhaps above all others, children have interest in being able to safely walk or bike around this town. One of the last children to sign had ridden her bike to the market that morning, and she told us that this petition was important to her because she'd had a close call with a truck running a red light on her way there. That we were mere feet from having another unspeakable tragedy will surprise no one who has ever ridden a bicycle in this town. That's the decision we face going forward. We want to perpetuate and expand a city planning paradigm where we carve up the city with wide and fast roads that are utterly inhospitable to human-powered transportation. We want to be a city where a child can safely ride their bike to the farmer's market. It's impossible to do both. Hopefully the choice is as clear to you as it is to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Go ahead.
Mayor, that was our last public commenter.
Okay, well, thank you much. Then we're down to agenda item number 5. This is the review of draft agenda for the June 15th, 2021 City Council meeting. Council, any concerns or questions about next week's draft agenda? All right. I'm not seeing anything from council of any concerns for the draft agenda. Ms. Salzberg, if you could get Sean Kugler on the line here. Oh, we don't have a phone number for Mr. Kugler for the recognition, yeah, well, we'll get to that. We are down to agenda item number 6. This is the proclamation for Two-Spirit Day, and I do have Holly Figueroa on the Teams meeting, who this will be virtually given to here. Hi, Holly. So, the term Two-Spirit has been present in Native communities for countless generations that predate LGBTQ+ terminology. For generations, Two-Spirit Native culture went underground to avoid detection and persecution. And while the term Two-Spirit was coined in 1990 in Winnipeg, Canada, as a means of unifying various gender identities and expressions of Native American, First Nations, Indigenous individuals, the term is not a specific definition of gender, sexual orientation, or other self-determining catch-all phrase, but rather an umbrella term. Two-Spirit people have both a male and female spirit within them and are blessed by their creator to see life through the eyes of both genders. And the term does not diminish the tribal specific names, roles, and traditions nations have for their own Two-Spirit people. Examples of such names are the Winkte among the Lakota and the Nagle among the Navajo people. These names and roles go back to a time before Western religion. Two-Spirit is not a new age movement, but rather a reclamation of Two-Spirit's rightful place in Native culture. To be of service to elders and youth with very particular medicine is paramount. The city of Flagstaff recognizes that claiming the role of Two-Spirit is to take up the spiritual responsibility and the role traditionally had, walking the red road, being for the people and the children, youth, and being a guiding force in a good way with a good mind are just some of those responsibilities. Now, therefore, I, Paul J. Deasy, Mayor of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, do hereby proclaim June 5th, 2021 as Two-Spirit Day in Flagstaff, Arizona. Holly, would you like to say a few words?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Asquale na Holly Figueroa Bahan Matsiwa na Dalamana Amhopi Matsiwa na Dawamangwa na Sapalangak Sino na Navatak Ovi Umkita. Good afternoon, and thank you so much. It's an honor, a pleasure to accept this proclamation on behalf of the LGBTQ Two-Spirit community. I am very much an ally and have done so much work to advocate for this very special population. And I can't thank you enough for helping to build a strong foundation for us to continue the work that's been done. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors who have been doing this work and advocating and living their lives as they have. The first peoples of this land, the first peoples of this state, just continuing on, ensuring that we're accepting, including, and just, practicing our cultural humility of respect and honoring one another as human beings. And so I thank you all. And I look forward to the work in the month. Happy Pride. And I'm just so thankful to be able to continue being an advocate for the population, really trying to change the story so that folks can live their best life, a happy, healthy, happy life, so that we are free of stigma, discrimination, and we are all able to live together in harmony and happiness. So thank you all again so much on behalf of the LGBTQ Two-Spirit, my relatives, families, and friends. Asquale, thank you.
Thank you so much, Holly, and thank you for everything that you do for our community and surrounding community. All right. Were we able to get Mr. Kugler on the line?
Yes, Mayor, we were able to get him on the line. He is waiting once your comments are finished.
Excellent. Mr. Kugler, on behalf of the City of Flagstaff and Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for the assistance you have provided in the efforts to improve accessibility for our many city websites. Today's world, website accessibility has become a basic human right. Through your expertise, and time and efforts, our city websites have become more accessible. In addition, this ensures that all our potential users, including those who are differently abled, have a positive user experience and can easily access information. By assisting us in implementing accessibility best practices, you have improved the usability of our websites for everyone. Thank you once again for your generous assistance. And I'd be happy if you're on the line if you would like to say a few words, and really appreciate everything that you've done.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor and City Council and the Commission as well. I appreciate the recognition. I even more appreciate the inclusion that's happening through the work that's being done by the staff of the city to make our websites more accessible and inviting to all users.
Thank you, Mr. Kugler. All right, with that, we're down to agenda item number 8, which is the honoring community member, Mr. Daryl Marks, for national recognition from the John F. Kennedy 2021 Profile and Courage Award for COVID Courage. Ms. Tohi, I believe.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I really appreciate your time tonight. I appreciate the time that also to shine some grateful light on our brother, Daryl Marks. I also just want to first of all say I'd like to honor the land that we occupy the ancestral lands of Indigenous nations who call this place home. I also like to share with you my clans, which is Tachitni Notai, that's my mom's clan. Kilachitnis are my dad, and Ashin are my maternal grandfathers. I'm sorry, and Hashkahatzohis are my paternal grandfathers. So with my work here at the city is the coordinator for Indigenous initiatives. And I have with me in my office Daryl Marks and his family. And just to give them some time, I want to also give time to just recognize him according to the national award that he was awarded and he was given because of his selfless effort. First, I want to just also give you a little background on the award. And these are all you have in your packets as well, but I want the public to understand where this comes from. So at the outset of the pandemic, Ambassador Carolyn Kennedy and her son, Jack, wanted to find a way to honor those on the front lines of COVID-19 pandemic that were going, and these people who were going above and beyond their everyday responsibilities to help those in our community. So after a public nomination campaign, thousands of people from across the country submitted COVID Courage nominations, sharing moving stories about the commitment and sacrifice of the members of their communities who put their own health at risk to help heal the sick, protect our most vulnerable, and provide critical support services. So 7 honorees were selected, and they represent the courage and the national sacrifice that have been seen and that have been witnessed in so many aspects of American life. Daryl is an Indigenous Diné, also known as Navajo. He works as the Native American academic advisor at our local Flagstaff High School. He also advocates for the rights and works to meet the unmet needs of the Navajo and Hopi tribal communities. Daryl is a single parent raising 2 teenage sons, and even with his packed schedule, he has worked to coordinate deliveries of food and supplies to Navajo and Hopi families struggling during the pandemic. He advocated for voting rights in the face of efforts to disenfranchise Native Americans. He worked to provide access to remote learning opportunities in tribal areas, made even more isolated by COVID-19. And at his work, he served as a personal counselor and resource to students struggling with loss and depression. And according to Joan Dewey, who is the support services school social worker, she says, Daryl Marks is a man who has utilized his faith and traditional Navajo values and his relationship with his students, families, and community to serve with heroism throughout this pandemic. He has helped screen and assess to know when students need increased emotional support and when elders and families were in a lockdown status on the Navajo and Hopi nations. To prevent the spread of COVID, he helped organize and direct the response of emergency food and supplies. Mr. Marks, even while experiencing his own family losses during this pandemic, has assisted in advocating and supporting students with the traditional grieving ceremonies and sharing knowledge with the school to increase understanding and support for the students. Daryl has a big heart, I know, because I know him personally. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to know that his community, the whole of Flagstaff, appreciates him. And it's a small gesture to do this, but I'm really happy and proud to do so. And I'll leave it up to council. If you can just take a little bit more time, I'm gonna present him with a gift. And it's traditional for a male in this way that he received this gift in a certain way. But But I'll leave it up to council, whether if you want to comment yourself or if you want to go to public comment, public participation first, or if you want Daryl to say something, I'll kind of leave that order up to you. But really, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Just hold on 1 second.
Yeah, I think it would be great if give the gift and then we can have Mr. Marks.
Okay, thank you.
This is a blanket called, it's a Pendleton blanket. It's called the knowledge of fire. And I just wanted to help him with that because he really is a symbol of that warmth of fire and it's important in ceremonial ways as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Estoy. Mr. Marks, would you like to say some words, or your sons?
First off, I'm grateful for the gesture. She nas esha tapa ado na kai de na bash chin kitla chi ni da che ado shi da shanala. This award wasn't ever something that I was working towards. It wasn't something that I planned for. And you know, the work that my sons and my family have put together, it's always not been about me, but we. And how do we continue to be good relatives, and how do we continue to, you know, show up for our communities? And most importantly, as Rose has shared, we talk about our relationships, and we talk about how we should be as individuals within our own community. And when everything started taking place last year, when schools were shutting down and the city itself was shutting down and families were told to stay home, there was a lot of fear and anxiety that rose in a lot of our families, including my own. And you know, one of the things that I have to say that it's important, because as Rose shared, you know, this is home to, you know, many different peoples. 13 different tribes hold this land as their ancestral territory, as their home. And this mountain itself holds a tenet, holds a responsibility and a teaching that for my family gave us guidance, gave us, you know, additional purpose to be able to stand forward and do something in support of our community, in support of our relatives. And just as this mountain has continually taken care of this community by not only bringing in weather, by bringing in a climate that is welcoming and supportive and having the environment that can provide, it's important that we learn how to reciprocate, to take care of her in the same way that she's taking care of us. The thing that I humbly, you know, am grateful for this recognition, the thing that keeps coming back to me is that we as a community need to continue to normalize this type of activity, this type of behavior of showing up and helping each other and being present, because I, as a father, know that I had to demonstrate some sort of resolve for my children, to give them some assurances that things are going to be okay as long as we do it together, as long as we show up for others. And throughout all this work, you know, we didn't ask for any acknowledgments. We didn't ask for the attention to be drawn to any of the work that was being done, because as Indigenous people, as the Navajo person, I was taught that this is something that is expected of you. You should be doing this anyways. And, you know, living here in this community at the footprint of this mountain, in the presence of this mountain, those teachings only got louder during this time when everybody got quiet. And I hope that we learn how to not only take care of each other, but we learn how to take care of this mountain. Because there are so many other young people out there who hear and need to be heard. and need to see the actions of this community as we come together, as we learn to continue to come together, to be better community members, to be better relatives to one another, to take care of one another as we go forward. And so with that, I say, yeah, thank you to all that exists, to our young people who continue to be that light and that motivation for us to continue to protect their future and to provide that example that they need. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Daryl. And if your sons would like to say something as well, you're more than welcome to. I know this was a big family and affair, and how much you all have each other's back and your communities. So,
Well, to the community, I'd like to thank you for recognizing my father, because he's made a lot of tough choices, especially before this time. Because I'm sure Indigenous people and people of color, we've had our own struggles. We've had experiences to where we question what we're doing, if it's enough, if it's going to change things, if things are ever going to change. My father, even though he didn't have a father before him, he committed himself to being a father to us and taking on the challenge of taking care of us by himself. And along the way, having others participate in taking care of us, teaching us what it means to be a man. Because even him had to struggle with that identity, that even though as Indigenous people, our mother is being harmed, this mountain may be desecrated, that we continue to persist and carry on, creating a healthy role model for us, so that whenever any discrimination happens towards us, whether we are stopped by police for unjustified reasons, or we're bullied in our high school, or that the society that we work so hard for, that we give so much to, turns its back on us, that we continue to persist, that we continue to carry on like those before us. As our elders demonstrated, my father helped demonstrate that in the household. Even in this time of the pandemic, when we lost family members close to us, people that held such significance in the community, he still carried on, telling us that we must be accountable to our responsibilities, because if it's not us, then who? We're the ones who were taught that the people look up to you. The people have faith in you. So you must find it within yourself to overcome your fears, to overcome the pain, and to find the light within that pain, to find beauty before us, so that there may be beauty after us. And that is something that we always say in our prayers, because it's not just ending a prayer, but carrying on our life, living on, so that we honor the memories of those before us, we honor those who put their efforts before us, so that we can exist the way we are. We wouldn't be wearing headbands or having our long hair if it wasn't those before us to carry on those pains, those traumas. I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't have the voice to speak to all of you, to our community, if it weren't my father telling me, reminding me to persist and be resilient. And we recognize that we've done a lot, and we didn't always succeed, as we lost people, as the numbers still climbed for those who lost their lives. But failure was a necessary part of the journey, because it was those who chose to fight that light carried on. It was my elders, my grandmother, who's right here beside us, who chose to carry on, that I get to carry my identity, to hear my language spoke within this community, the community that once alienated us. And now we get to celebrate how far we've come, and to understand that even though we're celebrating a community member of ours, we still have a whole community to celebrate, a whole community to grow together, so that the beauty after us is beautiful, is healthy, is alive. So I like to thank all of you for participating with that. And I pray and I hope that we are accountable to our responsibilities, especially accountable to the mountain, to the land, and those before us, so that those after us understand what they need to do. Yeah, thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Machias. Well, with that, I would love to open it up to the rest of council to speak your words. I would just like to say that I know the emotional support, the spiritual support, and the physical support that you have provided to the community has been happening far before COVID, and I know will continue far past COVID. But in the midst of a crisis, we really saw heroes come among us, heroes come up in the community that stepped up to support each other, that embodied that resilience that your son spoke to. And that embodiment is something, honestly, I look up to and others look up to as a model of behavior that we should all try to reach. So I thank you for setting that example, Daryl, in our community, for your sons, and for the surrounding area. So thank you so much. City Council, would you like to, Councilmember Shimoni?
Thank you, Mayor, and hi, Daryl. I want to say thank you for all that you've done for the community throughout this past year. And as Mayor eloquently said, in the past leading up to this and moving forward, I wanted to wish you strength as you carry on and continue to shine brightly and inspire and empower those around you while supporting yourself and your loved ones and all of us. So thank you, and thank you for your words tonight and all of your hard work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. Ms. Salzberg, do we have any public commenters on this item? I just want to make sure we're not.
No, Mayor, we do not.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again, Daryl. Well-deserved recognition, and I look forward to continuing to see all the great things that you do for others and for our community. So, thank you. With that, that brings us down to agenda item number 9, which is our Criminal Justice Coordinator Council, the CJCC update.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Andy Bertelson. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Flagstaff. Shannon Anderson cannot be with us this evening. She is taking a much needed vacation this week, so I am filling in, and I have the honor of introducing our speakers this evening for the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council update for tonight. Our speakers are Dan Slayton. He is the Coconino County Superior Court presiding judge. Dan is someone I've known for a long time. I haven't seen him for a while, so looking forward to hearing his presentation from Judge Slayton. And Thomas Eberly, who we see on the screen now, our program director of the Justice Management Institute. So with that, I will turn it over to our presenters. And Tom and Dan, if you need us to put the presentation on the screen, we are prepared to do so. Otherwise, if you are prepared to share your screen for the presentation, feel free to do that and let us know if you need us to share. Thank you so much.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Thank you so much for inviting us to give a presentation today. I will try to do this through sharing my screen. And I do want to take a moment to let the judge jump in and say hello and provide greetings as well.
Judge Slayton, are you with us this evening? Well, Thomas will give him a bit of time if that's okay.
Okay. Again, thank you very much for inviting me this afternoon. I am Tom Eberly. I am a program director for the Justice Management Institute. The Justice Management Institute was selected by Coconino County to provide an assessment and support for their Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which is going through a period of transition. And if you're not familiar with the CJCC, I'd like to just give you a little bit of a history of its purpose and how long it's been in existence. Excuse me. The council was established in 2005, and its purpose is to bring together local stakeholders to collaborate on improving the criminal justice system. And when I talk about local stakeholders, I am referring to judges, the sheriff, the police chief, the city and county prosecutors, the public defender, the probation chiefs, city and county officials, and a bunch of other folks. The total membership of the council is about 23 members. And the mission statement for the council is to promote the safety of the citizens of Coconino County, the efficient and just treatment of justice-involved individuals, the protection and healing of victims, and to work toward the prevention of crime and the reduction of recidivism. The chairperson for the council is the Honorable Judge Dan Slayton, and our new vice chair as of last month is the Municipal Court Judge, Honorable Judge Tom Shotina. And just to give you a little bit backstory about the Justice Management Institute, we're a nonprofit agency based out of Arlington, Virginia. We've been in existence since 1995. We provide technical assistance to jurisdictions across the country. And one of the things that we're most proud of and deeply involved with is the support for Criminal Justice Coordinating Councils, CJCCs. And we lead the national network, and we founded the National Network of Criminal Justice Coordinating Councils. This is really a peer network for CJCC chairpersons and directors to come together to learn from one another and to share their challenges as well as their learning experiences. When Coconino County reached out to JMI, they asked us to provide assistance to the CJCC because, as I mentioned, it was going through a transition period. And the goal for the project was to have the county operate a high-functioning CJCC that utilizes best practices and produces beneficial outcomes for the criminal justice system, county residents, and individuals living on tribal lands. And there are 4 objectives tied to that particular goal. The first goal, or excuse me, the first objective is to assess and revise with input of council members the purpose and structure of the CJCC to ensure that it aligns with best practices. The second objective is to identify shared priorities among CJCC members and produce a strategic plan with specific actions that the council will pursue over the next 2 years. The third objective of our involvement is to coordinate the day-to-day operations of the CJCC and implement a strategic plan until a new support staff is hired by the county. And then the last objective is to assist the county in seeking that individual, a highly qualified person to support the CJCC as it goes forward in all its initiatives. So to quickly just summarize the 4 deliverables from our involvement. One is to perform a CJCC assessment. The second is to complete a strategic plan. Third is to develop the staff position and help fill that position. And then fourth is to provide short-term support. And the project timeline is roughly 2 months. Excuse me. For the assessment, JMI did this back in December and January, and it involved us having conversations with about 25 individuals from your jurisdiction. Each interview lasted approximately an hour and was done via video or telephone. And really what we wanted to do was to hear the concerns and opportunities that might exist in your jurisdiction. And it was really interesting to have these conversations because the thing that really struck me was that there's 3 themes that emerged from almost every conversation that I had. And the first theme was that people believed in the CJCC and they felt it could serve a very important purpose, but that it's kind of lost its way and that it needed to be restructured. The second thing I heard over and over again was that the system and the community could do better when it comes to the indigenous population. And that's something that the CJCC should address. And then the third thing that I heard, and I think this is relevant to you all, is that the folks felt that there could just be better collaboration between the county and the city in working together to pursue initiatives that will strengthen the criminal justice system and serve county residents and city residents better. So in performing the assessment, JMI used a tool that we developed through our involvement with the National Network of Criminal Justice Coordinating Councils. And it consists of 12 essential elements, things that we consider best practices for a CJCC. And you see those essential elements listed on this chart in the left-hand column. And there are items such as being system focused, participation, leadership structure, executive committee, and so forth. When we talk about elements such as participation, for example, what we're referring to is, does your CJCC have the right people participating? Are they attending the meetings, or are they sending designees? And are they not just attending, but are they participating in the meetings? And so those are the types of things that we look at. One of the things that we also did is we sent out a survey to all the CJCC members to get their perspectives directly. And what you see in the second-hand column are the scores that we received back based on the feedback. And the scores go from a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 meaning that the members felt that the CJCC was performing strongly in that area, and a score of 1 obviously means that they felt that the CJCC was performing poorly. So you can see that based on the responses that we received, the CJCC was performing from the perspective of the members as average, slightly above average in some areas. One of the things that we also do in terms of the tool that we use to assess the CJCC, the essential elements tool that I mentioned, is what we assign a rating, and we have a rating based on whether that element is fully present or it's not present at all. And what you see with the little colored dots there is that out of the 12 elements, the CJCC was not meeting all the essential elements. As a matter of fact, about 6 out of the 11, there was the presence of the element. Out of 3, the elements were somewhat present. And then on 2 of the elements, there was non-compliance. And we did not include the staff position because it's currently vacant. So that gives you a sense of how we perceive the CJCC based on the assessment that we did, as well as the membership. And then that last column that you see on this chart notes some of the specific areas where we felt that the CJCC was falling short. And for example, on the very top line there, that the CJCC was not doing a very good job when it came to managing crises or working together through interagency collaboration. So from this assessment, JMI produced 13 recommendations, and the recommendations included the following. One was to focus on producing meaningful outcomes through the CJCC. As I mentioned, quite a few people felt that the CJCC lost its way and fell into the trap of just receiving updates from various agencies or community service providers or wherever it may have been. And they wanted the CJCC to actually get things done. So that's obviously one of the recommendations is trying to move the CJCC into that direction and structure it accordingly. The second recommendation was to reduce the CJCC membership to a manageable size. Over the years, the CJCC grew to an excess of 30 members, which is a little bit too large for a manageable group to get things done. The third thing that we recommended was to reconfigure the executive committee. Fourth was to alternate the meetings of the CJCC, the full CJCC, and the executive committee. Fifth was to utilize subcommittees and work groups more effectively to generate greater and better results. Sixth was to form a standing committee specifically for the Native community. Seventh was to establish a formal process for selecting a vice chairperson. Eighth was to update the CJCC bylaws. 9, update and revise the strategic plan and implement the plan. 10, produce and monitor system data. 11, create a criminal justice director position funded by the county and the city. And I would like to take a moment and say thank you to you all for agreeing with this recommendation. 12, to institute racial and ethnic impact statements. And if you're not familiar with the concept of racial and ethnic impact statements, it essentially asks that anytime you implement a policy or program that you step back and you do an assessment to see whether or not that policy or program is going to improve or make worse disparities for people of color. And obviously, if you feel like it's going to create greater disparities or greater disproportionality, to reconsider that policy before it's put in place. And then lastly, in the spirit of transparency, is to have the CJCC post all its materials on the website so that the public can see. And we believe that each of these 13 recommendations can be accomplished over the course of 1 year. So that's how we got started. We did the assessment, and then we started pursuing the other objectives that I mentioned earlier. And where we are as of today is that we've revised the bylaws for the CJCC, and we were fortunate to have strong participation from the city. We had Shannon Anderson, Brent Harris, and Rose Tohi serve on the work group to revise the bylaws, and those bylaws were approved by the CJCC, I think last month or maybe the month before, unanimously. So we're making progress in that area. We also formed several subcommittees or identified subcommittees that we would like to form. And those subcommittees focus on juvenile justice, indigenous initiatives, and behavioral health and shelter. The third activity that we're involved with is we're exploring the use of video technology for court hearings. And we'd like to see that initiative expanded now that we've gotten a feel for how it could potentially work during COVID. Just pursuing this one initiative alone could provide tremendous savings for the city and the county when you consider that in the past, when individuals had to appear before a judge for court hearing, they had to be transported from the jail to one of the courthouses. And that is very costly, requires a lot of staff time, and obviously just driving back and forth, and that introduces security concerns and so forth. So what we're doing is we're working with a work group to figure out a way that we can do most of the hearings virtually when it's appropriate by law. And we're very grateful to have, again, the input from city folks, including Judge Shotina, who's a participant on the work group. The other thing that we're working on is putting together a strategic plan, which is actually going to take place tomorrow. We're bringing together the CJCC, and we're going to spend the afternoon mapping out strategies for the council to pursue, as well as the subcommittees of the council. And really, this is going to be the foundational work of the council for the next couple of years. Then the last thing that we're focusing on is developing the job description for the new coordinator, and that's currently in process. So in approximately 5 months and going through COVID. We try to get quite a bit of work done, and there's still a lot more to be done. But I'd like to now open it up to any questions that you may have and or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Eberly, and all the work you're doing to help with the CJCC. Council, do we have any questions or comments? Throw C and or Q in the chat box here. Not seeing anything right now. Was Judge Slayton able to join us, or just wanted to see if he was able to make it here?
Mayor, I don't believe that he has been able to join us at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, I just didn't want to skip over him if he did jump in during the meeting. Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Tom. Good to see you. You know, I really want to thank you, Tom, and Amy, and the Justice Management Institute for your work in our community and bringing your expertise to Flagstaff and to the greater Coconino County and working with the CJCC. I've been involved with the CJCC, I think more or less in my first year as an elected. I heard about the group and immediately wanted to join and listen in and do my best to get caught up to speed and help the group progress. I am so grateful for the work we have done over this past year during the pandemic to realign our values, to address our bylaws, to really kind of work out some of the challenges and some of the difficulties that we've been facing as a group, and get ourselves on a good path, the right path to be most successful. And I think that you and JMI have been at the core of making that a reality. So I'm very grateful. We have a retreat tomorrow, as was mentioned, and I'm very much looking forward to that. And I also want to just express gratitude also to all the city members who have been involved: Brent, Shannon, City Manager Clifton, Rose, Chief, Sterling. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to miss some names, but this is a joint effort. This is a team effort, and the city has a big role in this team effort. And so I'm looking forward to the work ahead. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to council for agreeing to help co-fund this position that we are yet to fill. I think that in the co-funding of this position, we're gonna have more communication and better communication between our agencies and municipalities to best see these ideas through and bring these ideas into fruition. And yeah, I'm grateful for the presentation today, and look forward to hearing from my colleagues on council. If anyone has any comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But it's been an honor to serve on the commission, or the CJCC, on behalf of the city, and I look forward to the hard work ahead of us. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. I did have a question, and this might be for city staff, but in terms of the joint position that we were able to allocate in our budget cycle, what was the result on the county side? Have they dedicated the funds? And their budget retreat was after ours. So I don't know if anyone from staff or you, Mr. Eberly, know anything about that front aspect.
Mr. Mayor, Greg Clifton here. I have not heard from the county on this. I have a very strong assumption that it was approved, but I will confirm that with you. I have no reason to think that it was not approved, but allow me to circle back on that one, please.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. I definitely felt those wins happening, but I just wanted to see about any confirmation. Thank you. Well, I'm not seeing any other the C's and Q's in the chat box, so I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Eberly, and I look forward to seeing the progress with the CJCC and subsequently the community outcomes in our criminal justice system. So thank you much.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we are down to agenda item number 10. This is the update regarding Flagstaff's 10-year housing plan.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is Sarah Dar, I'm the Housing Director, and it's my pleasure tonight to introduce Leah Bloom. Leah has been our lead staff person on this project, and I could not be more pleased with how she has managed it, the dedication and hours she has put into it. But I would be remiss to not also acknowledge, and I believe Leah will in more detail, but acknowledge our Housing Commission and all of the community members that have put in, at this point, hundreds of hours. I won't steal Leah's punchline, but to put in hundreds of hours of work into investing time and energy into a 10-year housing plan. So there is still lots of work ahead. Tonight is not the review of a draft plan, rather it is an update to you before council break, so that you have an idea of how far we've come and what we still have on tap moving forward. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Leah with a big thank you for her skilled management of this process.
Well, Leah, you're
muted.
That's the right way to start a presentation, I guess. Sorry about that. I was focused on the camera and not the microphone. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction, and hello, Mayor and Council. I am going to give you a overview of what we have accomplished and our timeline moving forward for a 10-year housing plan. I'm going to turn my camera off, but I will keep the mic on, I promise. So this is an informational presentation, and I'm going to provide you with an overview of the hard work that has gone into the creation of the plan and the accomplishments to date. Housing will provide a snapshot of the overarching goals that were created by the informal working groups, and we are going to discuss the work that is ahead and review the project timeline moving forward. On December 1st, 2022, City Council declared a housing emergency. The resolution states that the City of Flagstaff's housing section, within 9 months from adoption of the resolution and with input from the Housing Commission, will present to City Council for consideration a housing plan which focuses on housing development and preservation within the city for the next 10 years. Plan elements will include, but are not limited to, ways the city's resources can best utilize to achieve identified goals, and the plan will set goals that will be reviewed annually in a report to City Council and to the community. On January 28th, the Housing Commission approved the public participation plan and the project timeline, and it hit the ground running. The Commission hit the ground running to create the 10-year plan in the beginning stages. On February 9th, staff provided an affordable housing overview and a project update to City Council. So thus far, public outreach opportunities have occurred through informal working groups, commission meetings, and survey participation. Formal public outreach, such as additional commission meetings, community forum, council meetings, and a 30-day public comment period, will occur in the coming months. The purpose of the public participation plan is to ensure a proactive process, affording the opportunity for the public to be involved in all phases of the creation of the 10-year housing plan. And the objectives of the plan are listed here. Some are to recruit a stakeholders group of diverse and interested people. Housing team sent out a survey monkey, and to date, Housing has collected over 400 stakeholders who have expressed learning more and wanting to be involved in the plan. The Commission established 6 working groups. Working groups included commissioners, city staff, and city community stakeholders. And each group reviewed the attendees to ensure an inclusive environment. The first is the Affordable Housing Gap Analysis. This informal working group is creating the quantifiable goal for the plan. So essentially, this group will establish the need and a reasonable number of housing units to preserve and to create over the next 10 years. We'll be tracking this information and the accomplishments throughout the next 10 years of the plan if approved by council. And this group has also created Flagstaff's housing survey. The goal for the survey was to garner the most possible responses, as many responses as possible, and to gather statistically valid housing data from a fair sampling of people representing the entire housing continuum. So when we say the entire housing continuum, we are talking about folks experiencing homelessness to folks that own their own homes. The survey closed Friday, May 28th. And over 2,700 participants have taken the electronic survey. The survey was provided in both English and Spanish. We had paper surveys as well, and I'll go into detail in a little bit further about that. The Neighborhood and Equity Informal Working Group really focused on equity and removing barriers to housing. This group was also working on an opportunity index mapping project, which is a mathematical attempt to describe the extent of which various neighborhoods provide sufficient opportunities to their residents to achieve a livable quality of life. Opportunity mapping is a research method used to understand the distribution of opportunity in block groups, essentially, and it can be used as a tool for affirmatively furthering fair housing. Now, as many of you may know, Commissioner Joe Wheaton was the lead on this opportunity index mapping project. And losing Joe was a devastating loss to our community. During the creation of this map, I was continually impressed by Joe's commitment to housing equity, her passion for community, and her knowledge to how to use data and create relatable information. I know that drawing from her passion, Housing is confident that together with our housing team, our GIS department, and our fellow commissioners, we can complete this important work and make sure that it is included in the 10-year housing plan, and we'll make her proud. The other three informal working groups I want to touch base on as well. So we had health and affordable housing, and we also had sustainability and housing informal working groups. And these groups identified the important connection between housing and sustainability and housing and health. And they created goals essentially to reduce the housing emergency with a focus on health and sustainability. And lastly, the zoning and land use working group focused on ways the city can encourage more economically priced housing construction by private sector to address Flagstaff's workforce housing needs and to increase attainable housing opportunities for and occupied by local residents. This was exclusive of the affordable housing incentives. And then our policy informal working group consisted of one housing commissioner that sat on the five other informal working groups I just discussed, and they brought back the goals and the objectives and the strategies, and they went over each of these to make sure that we were creating a consistent voice in our planning process. So as mentioned, the informal working groups consisted of an inclusive group of people. And I'm typically not a text-heavy slide person on presentations, but this slide I feel really good about all the text because it shows how the beginning stages of the creation of the 10-year plan has strong community representation. So the informal working groups consisted of the following, and you can read these. I'm going to mention some out loud. Realtors, lenders, architects, Indigenous commissioners, teachers, builders, owners, and renters. We had F Cubed, we had ACONA, the Chamber was involved, NAU, excuse me, Native American, NACA was involved, Flagstaff Shelter, the Guidance Center, Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona, Catholic Charities, the County, League of Neighborhoods, Interfaith Council. So this is just to kind of name a few of those that were involved in our informal working groups. So informal working groups are taking a much needed break. As mentioned, exceptional work has been accomplished in the last 4 months. 6 informal working groups were created, and from those groups, 35 very productive meetings were held and over 80 individuals were involved. These incredible groups of people have dedicated close to 600 hours of volunteer time towards the creation of the Flagstaff 10-year plan. That's my punchline Sarah was going to steal, but 600 is a lot of time that has gone into this, and we're grateful for all that's been involved. So many volunteers have utilized their personal time outside of the working groups. Projects that have taken extra time are, of course, the Opportunity Index mapping, our housing survey, and our quantifiable housing gap analysis. And as you know, this is a multi-pronged project. I'm really excited to see the draft results coming in and the draft findings from these efforts. It confirms that the plan is coming together. And as a side note, I want to just have a shout out to Vice Mayor Becky Daggett. She is our Housing Commission liaison. She has been in attendance to the majority of the 35 informal working group meetings. And honestly, I think there was one she had a conflict with. So she has contributed over 40 hours of her time. So I want to just thank everybody for the work that has been accomplished to date and the time gone into the efforts. So there has been a lot that's been accomplished, and there's a lot of work to be done, but let me go over the work that's ahead before we go over some of our overarching draft goals. For our quantitative results, we have been buttoning up the gap analysis results, and again, this group is applying a methodology from the Joint Center of Housing Studies at Harvard University. The study essentially determines the estimated number of units needed based on income level and bedroom size, and we're applying that to Flagstaff data. This will be meaningful data, and it will be relatable to Flagstaff's area median income, as we refer to as AMI. The gap analysis will establish that need and that reasonable number of housing units to preserve and create over the next 10 years. For the statistically valid data, we have the housing survey, and staff is compiling paper surveys to our electronic survey results, and we're going to hand them over to a professor at NAU, Derek Sojourner. He's an associate professor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at NAU. Derek was introduced to us by Joe. He has been incredible to work with. As soon as he heard that this was a housing survey, he hopped on board. And I want to also acknowledge that our nonprofits, our shelters, and our library stepped up too with sharing paper surveys. Our housing authority passed out paper surveys and assisted with getting the word out and easing access for participation. Unfortunately, there is a setback to our Opportunity Index mapping tool, but city staff, including GIS, are meeting this week, and we're going to create a path moving forward to ensure that this tool will remain part of the plan, and council will keep you posted. Staff is now working to organize the draft goals and the strategies that came from the informal working groups into a plan format that's easily understandable. And once this is complete, the goals and strategies will be shared with internal staff for a viability and feasibility assessment. And then, of course, we will send it over to our amazing legal folks and give them time to have especially the strategies vetted. Formal public outreach will occur following these important steps, and housing is trying to stay on track and is staying on track for council's consideration in September. So again, what you're about to see are overarching draft goals. Please realize that there are many strategies that we can't share with public today because we do need to do our feasibility and viability assessment and have it legally vetted before bringing forth for public comment. These are conceptual goals, but I believe that it will give you a really good understanding of the direction we are headed. So the next two slides are shared goals, and these are reoccurring mutual goals that came up universally from all of our informal working groups. I'm not typically a slide reader, but I do want to read the goals so that everybody can hear and understand the direction we're going. One of the draft share goals is to create a dedicated funding source for affordable housing in Flagstaff. Another one is to create a groundswell of support for affordable housing and implement a public outreach campaign to educate the community about the critical role affordable housing plays in a thriving community and combating NIMBY opposition to housing and affordable housing. Implement a framework for centering equity on proposed and existing housing policies. An example of this would entail continuing to partner with our local continuum of care to ensure consistent actions when embracing equitable strategies and practices. More shared goals are to continue commitment for furthering federal and Arizona fair housing laws and all housing related services and programs, valuing the effort of those who seek to reduce housing barriers to full and equal access to housing opportunities, and providing fair housing education and resources to the community. And to continue to lobby and support federal and state legislation to increase the amount of funding available for the preservation and construction of affordable housing. Draft neighborhood and equity goals are affordable housing is part of every Flagstaff neighborhood. Identifying and working to address disparate impact is part of any development or redevelopment. And as a community, remove barriers to housing advancement. The housing and sustainability draft goals are all affordable housing units will strive to be net zero ready to stabilize and reduce living costs, to expand efforts to preserve existing housing stock, and to encourage and incentivize adaptive reuse. Our housing and healthcare draft goals are to reduce homelessness in Flagstaff and in the Flagstaff community, and to overcome cost barriers for households to obtain stable housing, to seek creative solutions to foster housing permanency for all, and to integrate healthcare into housing programs and housing into healthcare programs as appropriate. The zoning and land use draft goals are to explore building innovation and cost-saving practices, to establish an expedited development review process, which would consist of our site plans, building permits, and civil plans, to amend current zoning code ordinance to facilitate and enhance permitted housing options, and to ensure that the regional plan and the zoning code includes robust, affordable housing goals and strategies, policies. So as you can see, a lot has been accomplished, but we have a lot of work ahead in the next few months. As for the timeline and to date, we are on track and have completed the commission visioning meeting. We have conducted research and established draft goals and strategies, and we have worked with partners and stakeholders through informal working groups. Staff has restructured future public participation and outreach opportunities. It plans to provide a 30-day public comment period and to host community forums in August. And of course, that's once we do this internal feasibility, viability, and legal assessment. And then finally, with the end goal to present the draft plan to council in September for consideration. So with that, council, I want to thank you for your time. I anticipate bringing our draft housing plan back to the Housing Commission in August, and we'll provide updates at any future Housing Commission meetings. So I invite the public to attend. Housing will also be coming back to you in September. I am available for any questions, comments, or feedback.
Thank you, Ms. Bloom. This is really excellent. I mean, the amount of work that's been done and what results you're already showing with our goals and moving forward. I just want to thank you, the whole housing team, all the volunteers. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for your liaison work and being there. It's really great seeing this come together. Council, do we have any questions or comments? Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo what you said. The expertise that staff and the volunteers have brought to this effort has been really impressive. And I'm looking forward to taking everything that has been developed and taking it out to the public and seeing what the public thinks. So just thank you so much to staff and to all the volunteers.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Salzberg, for reminding me. We do have some public speakers on this. So actually, if we could do that before further council comment, I should have gotten the public participants first. My apologies. Yeah, Ms. Salzberg, if you'd like to tap them in.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I have Nicole on the line. Nicole, you can go ahead and speak now.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Nicole Ellman, and while I am a member of the Housing Commission, I'm speaking today as a private citizen. My comments and opinions are my own and do not necessarily represent any group or institution. The 10-year housing plan presented to you began its inception after Flagstaff City Council passed Resolution 2020-66, which declared an affordable housing emergency. Local community members, housing commissioners, city staff, and other subject matter experts have poured their time, expertise, feelings, and experiences into developing this comprehensive plan. Over the past 10 years, Flagstaff has realized a 53% increase in median sales prices of homes, with only a 14% increase in the area median income. Over half, 53% of renters, and over a quarter, 27% of existing homeowners in Flagstaff are cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their monthly income toward housing. 49% of all households in Flagstaff are considered low income, which means they earn less than 80% of the area median income. These households are frequently the ones who are one life event away from eviction or foreclosure. With the federal eviction and foreclosure protection nearing expiration, our community faces a significant increase to those households needing immediate housing assistance. Resolution 2020-66 declared that a housing crisis exists within our city and region and recognizes the need to make housing a leading priority for the organization and community. The resolution further declared that it would follow this 10-year housing plan. Council and Mayor's attention to and consideration of the 10-year housing plan validates the Housing Emergency Declaration and Resolution 2020-66. Some recent decisions have blurred the focus of this declaration, and your support of the 10-year plan will set a path for future councils and community leaders. The affordable housing challenge is not new to Flagstaff. It has been documented in city record for more than 50 years. You can make a real, tangible difference for our neighbors, community members, people you pass in the supermarket, any people who voted for you, and even people on this call. The time is now. What are we waiting for? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ellman. Next, public participant, please.
Mayor and Council, I have Tyler on the line. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, council members. This is Tyler Denham. I'm calling in today to urge you to continue to support the work being done on the housing plan. And once the plan is presented in August, to take seriously its goals and policies. Participating in the formation of the plan, it's been inspiring seeing so many community members from diverse backgrounds come together to brainstorm, research, debate, and ultimately chart a path out of housing affordability crisis. While the housing plan won't be legally binding, it would be a betrayal of all the hours and effort community members and city staff have poured into its creation and the very spirit of community collaboration to not give it due consideration. And I called today to say this, already knowing that all of you are broadly supportive of housing affordability, because I believe the goals and policies that will ultimately come out of the housing plan will be a significant deviation from the status quo. And change will always be scary to some people, and there's some pushback. But it makes sense that if we want to change Flagstaff for the better, not just on housing affordability, but also on climate change action, pedestrian access, environmental prevention, we can't stick to the status quo. So carrying out the housing plan will require political courage and a willingness to explain why these changes are necessary. I hope you'll be up for the challenge, and for one, I'm really excited. On a more somber note, one of the community members who participated in the process was Joe Wheaton. I don't know what other areas she might have been involved in, but she was essential for contacting the Coconino County Assessor's Office and procuring several key data sets, and also providing guidance on where to find and extract American Community Survey data for Flagstaff. It's no exaggeration to say that the housing gap analysis would have been impossible without those data sets and guidance. It's just a small gesture, but I think it would be a nice way of honoring all the ways that she was involved in the community, to acknowledge their work in the final plan when it comes out in August. So I hope that you'll consider doing that. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Denham. Next caller, please.
All right, Mayor, I have Duffy on the line. Duffy, it is your time to go. If you can turn off the speakers, you are all set. Duffy? Hello? Duffy? Mayor, let's go to the next, and I'll try to get Duffy on the line.
Sounds good.
Hi, Cara. It's your turn to speak. You can go ahead now.
Thank you. Thank you to the Honorable Mayor Deasy, Vice Mayor Daggett, and Flagstaff City Council for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Kara House, and while I am a member of the Flagstaff City Housing Commission, I am speaking today as a private citizen and not representative of any group or institution with which I may be affiliated. I speak today in support of the work of the 10-year housing plan being presented to Council today. The declaration of a housing crisis through resolution number 2020-66 recognized the more than 50-year need for affordable housing in Flagstaff, reflective of the cost of living that is 33.5% higher than the national average due to limited supply amongst high demand. The reality of housing cost burden neighbors, our neighbors and relatives experiencing homelessness and growing need for immediate emergency housing assistance, and the disproportionate impacts of the economic crisis and resulting housing insecurity on low-income communities and communities of color reflect the dire need for meaningful solutions to Flagstaff's housing emergency. I'm grateful to Council for recognizing this need, and to the members of the community and city staff who have stepped forward to volunteer numerous hours and immeasurable dedication to finding the housing solutions Flagstaff desperately needs. It is for these reasons, and out of shared recognition that housing is healthcare, and without meaningful solutions, we risk the well-being and the very lives of those we most rely upon to ensure a vibrant, thriving, equitable, and beautiful community, that I urge Council to support this plan. Those of you who have been on Council may remember when, in presenting the proposed housing bond measure, I stood before you and asked, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? I come before you to again stress that the time is now, and the power and political will rests in your hands to enact meaningful change for the people of Flagstaff. The question before you, I believe, is this: If housing is truly in crisis, if our community truly facing this emergency, if housing truly is healthcare, and if our people truly in need, what are we willing to do to provide relief, heal our history, and embrace the changes our city, our community, our neighbors, and relatives need? This plan, I truly believe, is part of the answer to that question. It is meaningful, well-thought, painstakingly deliberated action that embraces diverse perspectives, equity-based considerations, and actionable movements towards ensuring the city advances its commitment to and prioritization of housing, combating NIMBYism, and advancing Flagstaff's mission of protecting and enhancing the quality of life for all. I thank you for your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. House. Sean, were we able to get the other individual back on there?
We are. Duffy, are you available?
I'm sitting here right now.
All right, go ahead. You're on with the mayor and council.
Greetings, Mayor and council members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. And I'd like to acknowledge the staff and commission members, their time and hard work. Clearly, they're doing a very comprehensive and professional work, and it has a positive feel to it. I'd like to say that it's actually an extremely complex issue, which they all know, and you know, but I think that language matters, and the plan really needs to be broken down into other units based on the needs and the income levels, because they're not all the same, and it becomes very unclear to people who are reading it or hearing it when you don't know what is meant by urban. Like someone might say all the historic areas are urban, but they're actually not. What's urban are the new giant buildings that are being built. So I think that the plan would work better if it were broken down into sections that acknowledge the different kinds of needs. I have a lot more to say, but I didn't realize I was limited to 3 minutes. The other thing I would like to say is that affordable housing really works best when it's integrated into areas. So I am the founder and director of Flagstaff Townside Historic Properties Community Land Trust. Our homes are exactly the same as they've always been, and nobody knows those people have a subsidy to get into the home, and they fit right in, and there's no NIMBYism. And I'm concerned that people throw around the term NIMBYism, because I think what is actually happening is that people don't know what's going to happen next door to them, or they don't like what the zoning code allows when they've been there for however long, or they purchased not knowing it, whatever it is. I think people are concerned, and when there are uncertainties, they don't want things. Our program, you can't tell that that's affordable housing or below market housing. And I think that that works the best, to distribute housing in the neighborhoods to include more people and keep it more diverse. So if you looked at the Townside neighborhood, which is west of the library, we have quite a mix of housing styles and sizes and price points. It's probably the most expensive neighborhood in town now where you live. I mean, for what you get with your house. And you can't even tell that there are 5 houses that sell below market. We just did a resale, and the price was 56% below the leasehold appraisal. So that's a pretty darn good price for what would be charged on the open market, and yet nobody can tell that that's affordable housing. It's integrated in, nobody cares, and those people fit in. There's no NIMBYism because it fits. And I think that really needs to be taken into account. So I sent an email to staff today, to council, about ADUs, because I can't cover that here, but I will just say that there's no rent control in Flagstaff. So ADUs will not necessarily be affordable, right? They are going to want to pay for what they just built.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Your
like I'm
3
being
minutes.
cut off. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, thank you much. Thanks. Was there any other callers on this?
Bastian, I'm mayor and council on the line. You have 3 minutes.
Yes. Sorry, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Bastian Underway, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, which represents owners, operators, and developers of over 7,000 rental units in the city of Flagstaff alone. The AMA would like to offer recommendations as to how the city may foster conditions conducive to increasing the supply of housing in Flagstaff over the next decade. As noted in its presentation on November 24th, 2020, Flagstaff has nearly 23,000 households which are currently burdened. This is a large part of the result of over 3 decades of underproduction of housing units across all asset types throughout the city. To adequately address the affordability issue, it's imperative that we examine the conditions of the housing supply shortage and proactively remove these barriers to future development. Exclusionary zoning policies such as imposing height restrictions in the downtown core undermine patterns dictated by market needs, rights, and sustainable development, encouraging residents to shift to lifestyles only possible through urban infill and increased density. President's proposed jobs plan specifically addresses these exact types of exclusionary zoning policies with expensive development.
Yeah, apologies. We're having some audio difficulties here. Can we try to call the individual back?
This will be no easy, as I'm sure you are already aware.
I'm so sorry.
We'll have somebody call you on a different phone here to see if we can get a better audio reception.
Necessary as you draft Flagstaff's tenure housing plan.
We lost you. We're gonna have to call you back.
All right.
We'll have somebody call him back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Is this the last caller, or is there more we could fill in while we're trying to get a hold of them again? Is there anyone else holding on? That was the last caller. Okay. Well, if we'd like to get him back on the line, that'd be great. Okay.
All right, Bastian, you can go ahead and go now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about the technical issues from before. So once again, my name is Bastian Andrew, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, which represents owners, operators, and developers of over 7,000 rental units in the city of Flagstaff. The AMA would like to offer recommendations as to how the city can foster conditions conducive to increasing the supply of rental housing in Flagstaff this decade. As noted in the city's presentation on November 24th, 2020, Flagstaff has nearly 23,000 households which are currently cost burdened. This is in large part a result of over 3 decades of underproduction of housing units across all asset types throughout the city. To adequately address the affordability issue, it is imperative that we examine conditions that led to this housing supply shortage and proactively remove those barriers to future development. Exclusionary zoning policies such as imposing height restrictions in the downtown undermine natural growth patterns dictated by market needs, impede upon private property rights, and additionally prevent the city from enabling sustainable development by encouraging residents to shift to transit and pedestrian-oriented lifestyles when possible through urban infill and increased density. To wit, President Biden's proposed Americans Jobs Plan specifically addresses these exact types of exclusionary zoning policies, which make land more expensive to develop and homes more difficult to construct. The president explicitly outlines his goal to eliminate state and local exclusionary zoning laws, which ramp up the cost of construction, like minimum lot sizes, mandatory parking requirements, and prohibitions on multifamily housing, which have inflated housing and construction costs and locked families in areas with more opportunities, end quote. This will be no easy task, as I'm sure you are already aware. It will require strong political will on the part of you, the council, as many neighborhood activists will loudly beat the drum of NIMBYism, or the not in my backyard mentality, which drives community opposition to affordable housing development. To this end, the AMA remains at your disposal to provide for guidance and suggestions necessary as you draft the Flagstaff 10-year housing plan, as to help you achieve the goal of increasing the stock of workforce and affordable housing in Flagstaff. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bastian. And I do believe that was the last caller. And I think Councilmember Shimoni had a comment before we went to the public participants. So, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pull up my notes. Okay. Wow. Amazing work, Housing Commission and all the working groups with all the community partners. The amount of work that you all have been putting in, I've heard through individuals involved in the process, and just heard about the efforts that are being put in, and I'm just so blown away by all of your work on this commission, volunteering your time, your expertise, your passion, and your dedication to the city and to those who are impacted by affordable housing. And I just want to say thank you so much. You know, we have a long road ahead of us if we're going to be successful in getting through this as a community and this housing emergency that we are living in. And I know that at times it can be discouraging trying to fight for affordable housing here in Flagstaff, given the struggles we face with every development that we look at, including ones very recently that we faced. Talk is cheap, but actions speak a lot louder, right? So you know, as one of the speakers said, it's on us, council, to walk the walk that we want to see here for our community. It's really on us to be strong, to be inspired, and to remain passionate and dedicated to the voiceless, oftentimes, those who don't show up. And so, again, I want to say thank you for being a voice for those who don't have a voice and helping to hold us accountable as electeds to representing the community and the community's needs. This is the biggest issue in our community. We all can agree on this. But yet, how do we move forward and make these issues into solutions or find solutions to these issues is a greater question, right? But together, I do believe we will get there. And I do believe your work and your dedication and the many hours you've invested in this document and for the city will be successful, not just as another document on a shelf, but as a document that has traction, that has funding, dedicated funding, and helps to combat the struggles that we face and all of our neighborhoods are facing. I look forward to September. I'm looking forward to August. I like to help out in that public outreach portion. Leah, maybe you and I can talk offline about some ideas. And any kind of video outreach, I think would be really helpful. And I definitely am looking forward to a potential ballot initiative in the future. I know I'm getting a little off topic, but I just think that what you all are working on is so great and so tremendous and so important and timely to what the community is facing today and is so desperately in need of. And lastly, Mayor, I don't know if this is appropriate. I have a Housing Commission related question. It's not about the 10-year plan, so I don't know if it's really appropriate.
I'll let Sterling chime in here and see what he has to say about it.
Uh-oh.
You know, actually, that is okay.
Yeah.
Good to go. Right. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. You wish for Sterling. Just kidding. Leah, question for you. Do housing, like rezones, come before the Housing Commission?
Councilmember Shimoni, housing rezones do not come before the Housing Commission. And yes, I am excited to work with you and I'll be reaching out to you too.
Great. Mayor and Council, whatever it would take to consider that, and Vice Mayor, I think that would be very valuable to have this great group of individuals who are so passionate about our community to be a vetting source for the housing rezones that we face at the city, so that we can not only hear from P&Z, but from this commission. I think that would help us tremendously as we move forward. And Mayor, I don't know what the process is to making that happen, but obviously I'm in favor and support of that. So yeah, I'm not too sure if that's a decision that can be made tonight or if that's just something we need to talk about later. But I think that's an issue that's not going through this commission, and I think we need to fix that ASAP. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Leah, and thank you, everybody. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Sterling has a comment. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. Mayor and Council, it's not a decision that can be made tonight, and there are some things that I'd like to look at if that's a direction that the council would want to go. The rezones go before the P&Z Commission under the planning and zoning ordinance and code as it stands today. That there would be quite a bit involved if you wanted review by the Housing Commission as well. So it's not something that could just happen on the fly, but I appreciate your question, and that's something the council would have to give direction for us to look into. It's something I will say right now that I'm very cautious about it and would like to do an e-session on it before I say any more.
Mayor, may I do a quick follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Sterling, can we give you that direct, if council majority were to give you, can we give that direction to you tonight?
No, that would be an entirely different topic. I know that it's a question that you brought into the discussion here, but that would be something to come up separately. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Let me make sure I didn't miss anyone here from council on this. Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I guess this is kind of a question or just a discussion. I've seen a trend when talking to some of my real estate friends and some of my friends that build houses, that there's a recent trend that a lot of the houses, especially the new construction houses, are not being occupied by people that live here. They're being bought by people that live in Phoenix or some other related area, and they're only being used 1 or 2 days a month. They might be called weekender houses. And I presume there's not much we can do about that, but I'll just point it out that it's using up a lot of housing that could be used by people that live here and people that really do need a place to live. It may be part of a bigger problem where our society is the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is disappearing. But it definitely ties into the housing shortage. And short of getting a new legislature, I don't know how we can address this, but it's something that it's too big to be ignored. So if anybody has any comments, I'd be interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McCarthy. And yeah, I'll be great to see what the new statistics are, but I remember from the prior housing analysis that 25% of our housing stock is being taken up in that type of manner. And from what I'm hearing from realtors and et cetera, that they have more clients that are from out of town than local at this point. So just definitely valid concerns and something to keep in mind for sure as we move forward. And I'm sure our housing commission is well on top of it, and our housing team, it's definitely part of the conversation. So I look forward to learning more on how to address that particular side of the equation as well. All right, with that, I'm not seeing any more C's and Q's in the chat box. I'd like to take just a little 10-minute break. We've been at it for a little while, and then we can reconvene, let's say, right at 5 p.m. Sound good? All right, see you at 5.
Are now back streaming.
Excellent. We are now down to agenda item number 11, the discussion and direction on a Flagstaff prevailing wage ordinance. City staff.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Greg Clifton here. I will introduce this item, and we do have a short staff presentation that will help inform the discussion. By way of introduction, my comments really are directed as to how this is on the agenda. It was placed on the agenda at my request, considering that the matter had been broached previously with council and had some discussion, and then more specifically in light of some perceived urgency in addressing this matter because of pending state legislation. Others can speak to that in more detail. At any rate, we did want to get it before you for discussion. Tonight it is just an informational matter. Council feedback would be welcome, but there is no action item. I do believe that our new employee, Chris Rode, and I hope I'm getting that last name pronounced correctly, will be presenting on this. And I think Sarah Langley, our management analyst, will also speak to the legislative aspects of this. Do you have any questions of me, Mr. Mayor, or council before we proceed?
I think I'm good. Not seeing anything in the chat box. So thank you.
Thank you. Chris, are you ready to take this thing over?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mayor and Council. Let me go ahead and get my presentation up here on the screen. Can let's see.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, thank you again. And for the record, my name is Chris Rohde. I am a management analyst, and currently I oversee the Office of Labor Standards here at the City of Flagstaff. So I'm going to be talking a bit about what a prevailing wage is, and this will be just a brief presentation. So we have a minimum wage in Flagstaff, and the way that's different from a prevailing wage is that a minimum wage is a requirement that applies to employees all across the board, no matter what industry they work in or who their employer is. The only variance in a minimum wage is for tipped workers. And right now in the City of Flagstaff, a tipped worker, the minimum wage is $3 less than the wage for a non-tipped worker. But aside from those, it applies equally to everyone of all industry types, regardless of their position or employer. A prevailing wage is a little bit more specific and a little bit more complicated in that regard. It's specific in that it only applies for publicly funded public works projects. So anything that is being built as a construction project would be what it applies to. And the actual wage that is required to be paid to an employee can vary depending on what trade the employee works in, as well as their classification in that trade. So that means an electrician may be subject to a different wage under prevailing wage than a heavy equipment operator. And they may, and even within those categories, the level a person is at, whether they're a junior or a senior member, could also affect the wage that they're required to be paid under a prevailing wage ordinance. This means that you, instead of having one or two minimum wages, you have a large table that could have dozens or perhaps even hundreds of different wages, depending on who an employee is, what they'd be entitled to. That number is chosen, or it's you get to that number by looking at other similar positions in the same community. There's different ways you can calculate that, but essentially it's supposed to be a metric of what that job is worth in that specific community, because we know that wages vary based on states and cities. This is a more cumbersome process, so it does have to be more closely overseen by a governmental labor office, just because there's so much more to oversee. It does require a bit more activity on behalf of the governing agency. At the federal level, the prevailing wages are governed by the Davis-Bacon Act. This requires that any employee working on a federal public works project that is valued at more than $2,000, that's the threshold at which it kicks in. That's not very high at this point, so it applies pretty broadly to a lot of federal projects, and it's overseen by the U.S. Department of Labor. So they're the ones that administer this project. They do a survey every 3 years to determine what the wages for each position type should be, and they publish those every 3 years. And when you work on one of these projects, there's forms that go to the Department of Labor that they use for that survey, and it does include workers of unions and non-unions as well. At level, 26 states have opted to make their own version of the Davis-Bacon law that apply to state contracts. They vary broadly because 26 different states, 26 different laws. In some states, there is no minimum cost, so even the smallest projects are still subject to these requirements. I believe that the state with the highest threshold is Connecticut, which requires the project be worth at least $1 million if it's a new project in order for it to kick in. But they do vary in the full range of $0 to $1 million before they're required to kick in. And then the methods that they use to determine what the wages should be paid are vary as well. Some use a similar system to the federal government, and they do their own surveys of their communities to see what workers should be paid there. Some use collective bargaining agreements with unions and the like to determine what they should be. And some states just have chosen to adopt the federal number, whatever the U.S. Department of Labor puts out. Arizona is not one of those states. In Arizona, we do not have a statewide prevailing wage. So we also don't have any city, county, or town that's adopted its own at the local level. So aside from the Davis-Bacon Act and federal contracts, prevailing wages aren't they're not really around in Arizona. Workers here, unless they're working on a federal project, just because the state and local governments don't participate in them, are not subject to that prevailing wage. There are a few laws that govern these wages in Arizona I want to go over just real briefly. The first is Proposition 300, which was passed in 1984. That was referred to the ballot from the legislature as a referendum, and it put a prohibition on prevailing wage laws for cities, counties, and the like. The statute reference there is in Title 34 of Arizona Revised Statutes. And this was passed before the Voter Protection Act of 1998, so it's not voter protected. The legislature is free to amend that to this day. The second one is one that's a bit more recent, Prop 202. This was a citizens initiative that passed this at the statewide level, and the important part of it that pertains to prevailing wages here is that it allows local governments like cities to regulate minimum wages, and the city of Flagstaff has taken advantage of that when it passed its minimum wage a few years ago. Now, this proposition did not touch that same statute 34-321, so there's a question as to whether it in part implicitly changed that. I will not make a determination that myself. I'll leave that to the legal minds that be, just letting know that that was passed and that's what it covers. And then there's one other bill that's not been passed yet, but is currently active in the state legislature, and that's House Bill 2014. It passed the House, and then in the Senate received a strike everything amendment that kind of goes one step further than 34-321 already is. So it would not only prohibit a city from adopting a prevailing wage law, but it would also prohibit a city from considering the provisions in the Davis-Bacon Act when they're evaluating contract bids. So that means that you couldn't use what a contractor or subcontractor is paying its employees. You couldn't use their collective bargaining status or whether or not they participate in internships with the federal government when you're evaluating whether or not to award a contract to a contractor or subcontractor. That one, again, that one has not passed yet. It received a strike everything amendment in the Senate, but it has passed that body, and that's where it is right now. And with where the legislature is at right now, we'll see where it goes in the next couple weeks or whatnot. So that's kind of the short bird's eye level presentation I have for you today on prevailing wages as they would apply to Arizona and the city of Flagstaff. But if the mayor or any council members have any questions that I can answer, I would happily do so. If you're looking for a question that is interpreting that state law or looking for legal things, I'll defer to Sterling. But any ones I'm happy to try to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Rohde, and congratulations on your hire, and welcome to the team.
Thank you.
City Attorney, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Chris. I have my camera on here briefly just to say hello, but again, due to broadband issues, I usually experience, which I already am, some difficulties with my audio when I turn that on, so I'll turn that off and proceed from there. As you mentioned, as Chris mentioned during his presentation, and as Greg mentioned also during the introduction of this item, there has been some discussion about ARS 34321 and Proposition 202 and its potential impact on that, which is preemptive from a state perspective. Proposition 202 allowed, obviously, as Mr. Rohde indicated, the opportunity for, or at least a question as to whether or not that preemption was altered or amended or repealed in some way. That is a question upon which the city of Phoenix proceeded last year in their efforts to put a prevailing wage ordinance in place locally. Without getting into legal detail here, procedurally tonight, we're here before you, the council, for discussion as the item is up for direction as to whether or not you want us to move forward with any further research on that. There is a question there, but I have not done that research and will not do so unless council directs me or my office to do so. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Attorney. Councilmember Shimoni? We do have a couple of public commentators, so if this is a question for Mr. Rohde, definitely go ahead, but I would like to save the discussion for after public participation.
Go ahead and take that public comment. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And was there anything added on? Was this the end of the full presentation so we can go to public participation?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure that Sarah Langley has anything to add on the legislative front, but she's very close to the bills at the State House and their status. Sarah, if you're with us, do you have any additional comments you would like to share with the council?
Hi, Greg. Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Sarah Langley, Management Analyst. I think Chris covered everything. The bill was sent back to the House for concurrence, so they would need to do a final read of that bill before it would be sent on to the governor. As you know, the legislature is kind of in a big rush to pass a budget right now to avoid a shutdown. So all attention is on the budget. It's unclear if the House would pick HB 2014 back up or leave it for this session, or if it might be wrapped into one of the budget bills in some way. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it and see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Langley. Well, with that, then let's take the public participants here.
All right, Mayor, I have Matthew Capaldi. Excuse me if I murdered that one. On the line. Matthew, you're all set.
Good evening, council members. Mayor, it's a real pleasure to be here this evening. I am here to speak on behalf of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters in favor, of course, of prevailing wage. In a nutshell, prevailing wage is a minimum wage for skilled, certified, qualified workers, for skilled professionals. And I listened to some of the comments previously from Councilman McCarthy and some of the other folks that spoke on the housing issue on the inequities regarding wages, salaries, and housing affordability. This plays right into that issue. We have here in Arizona, unfortunately, a race to the bottom when it comes to paying our skilled workers an adequate and livable wage. They work hard for those certifications, and they deserve to be paid accordingly. One benefit to the city when it comes to prevailing wage is increased accountability and oversight of how our tax dollars are spent on public projects. You have a certified payroll, You have a list of all of the qualified, certified, licensed folks on the project, which currently is not the case in most municipalities. There's a lack of oversight when it does come to the issue of cash pay, tax fraud on public projects. This helps address that issue. Also, this is a workforce development issue. This is an opportunity for local skilled labor and younger folks that are looking to garner certifications and start a career in construction and the trades. And you always hear the Chamber of Commerce and others talking about workforce development. This is how you do it, by having those certified, qualified people on the job that have apprentices working with them alongside that will then get those certifications, qualifications, and they're able to then have a living, stay here in Flagstaff. We're not asking for anything unusual. We're just asking that the city of Flagstaff adopt the federal Davis-Bacon rules and regulations. So we're not asking for anything exceptional or an exceedance of the Davis-Bacon Act. We're just asking for the city of Flagstaff to mirror that program. And I am available for any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Kabalbi. Do we have any comments or questions, Mr. Kabalbi, or council? I'm not seeing anything at this time. Thank you. And next commenter.
Mayor and Council, I have Joe Galley on the line. Joe, you can go ahead and speak.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening on this item. And just popped up on the agenda yesterday, and so it's on our radar. We're watching it closely. I think probably not to forgive the train going past the Chamber Building office here. If you heard the horn, sorry about that. I'd say, anytime we talk about wage mandates from a government entity similar to or prevailing wages, where the government entity mandates a wage for service, we're skewing the labor market, and we're telling the business community, whether it be developers or whomever, you must pay this as the going rate for labor. I think that causes us some heartburn. It certainly skews the input costs to whatever it is that we're looking to produce, whether it's massive transportation or infrastructure improvements through a city contract, or whether it's just our own restaurant service type, that drives up the bottom line cost to produce, and it results in higher costs for the community. And we struggle with that currently with our $15 wage mandate locally. We've seen a lot of entrepreneur business opportunities go elsewhere because of our existing wage. So I think we'd have some trouble with this. We probably also have some heartburn over what City Attorney Sterling and others and the staff member referred to as the hurdle that the city might have with conflicting state laws, whether the 1984 Prop 300 or a forthcoming law that gets passed through the legislature, might find some hurdles there. So I guess, if it's mayor and council's wish to move this forward, we would ask that we be part of the conversation as this item moves forward, that you reach out to us. We'd love to have our folks who would gain business with the city weigh in as well, and appreciate any opportunity to do so moving forward. And those are our thoughts at the moment, and I'm happy to take any questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Galley. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Galley? I'm not seeing any at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did just want to clarify one thing. I know that prevailing wage, it does get a little complicated, but this isn't a dictate toward a mandate towards private industries. This is specifically for our tax dollars and what the city is spending for contracted labor of journeymen and journeyman apprentices, et cetera. So this isn't something that we're, is mandating it citywide that all construction projects. No, this is specifically for our city public contracts. So I just want to clarify that this is not some huge citywide mandate. Is that the last commenter?
Yes, Mayor, that was our last public comment.
Okay, thank you. Well then with that, Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some executive session questions. So I'd like to make a motion that we recess or move into executive session.
Actually, before we take a second to that, Mayor, I'd like to jump in. Councilmember Shimoni and Mayor and Council, I just want to make sure you're clear. If there's discussion on this tonight or direction to move forward, I will be holding an executive session anyway. We can go in to talk about whatever your question might be under the catch-all rule that's already posted on the agenda for legal advice. But if there is ultimate direction here, I will be providing an executive session anyway. Not sure that that changes your motion, Councilmember Shimoni, but just wanted to point that out.
Great, thank you for that. I still think I have some executive session questions potentially, but I'm glad to hear that we'll have an executive session on this, assuming we move forward with this. But yeah, Mayor, however you want to handle that request of mine, you can save that for later, or we could go there now. Up to you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, this is something that if Council is willing to entertain, I think it is going to take a little bit of research time on the City Attorney's Office part due to the rather complicated nature and the Prop 202 with the Voter Protection Act that allows us to do minimum wages with this HB 2014. I know there's a motion on the table and happy to entertain that a second and see, but I think it would be good to see if we're on board with this general idea and then have City Attorney's Office be able to properly prepare for such an e-session.
Okay. I'm good with that, Mayor. What you're playing out in your mind, that maybe let our legal staff have some time to do some research and then have that conversation then. So I'm happy to remove my motion and save that conversation for later.
Okay, sounds good, Councilmember. Vice Mayor Daggett, though, has a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm also interested in getting additional information about this and potentially having a discussion about it in the future.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I do have a little spiel here, as you might expect, that I'd like to do, but I would like to see if other council members would like to comment or ask questions before, I jump in. So I guess I will jump in then. And this is kind of the reasoning behind a lot of this. Contracts, as we know, go to the lowest bidder by law. And without standards, this leads to companies being incentivized actually to cut corners on safety, benefits, pay, and potentially even engage in labor abuses in order to win the contracts. Meanwhile, we have good local companies who treat their employees well, who provide pensions, who are underbid by outside developers, construction companies, which means that there's less money circulating in our economy, less locals being hired, and de facto lower quality work because it's not required for the credential requirements are not there. In addition, the ability to audit these companies' books helps to reduce tax fraud, meaning we are being better stewards of our local taxpayer dollars. Economic studies have found that the Davis-Bacon Act reduces the number of construction workers living in poverty by 30%, up to 30%, and has increased blue-collar worker income by 16 to 17%. Now, the higher wage is offset by a rise of productivity. We all know that good work isn't cheap and cheap work isn't good. States with Little Davis-Bacon Acts, as mentioned, the 26, are shown to have up to 30% increase in productivity with higher quality work performed with the constructions lasting longer and having less ongoing maintenance costs. It promotes workforce development, as mentioned, creating greater opportunities for trade-skilled jobs that pay well and provide a ladder for many to climb to have good local middle-class jobs. Also importantly, for our mission of equity in this city. This act has been proven to reduce wage disparities for women and people of color, and has resulted in a larger proportion of women and people of color being in these well-paying construction jobs. Another thing to note is veterans. Veterans disproportionately are in the construction trades, and de facto then, this does provide additional benefits to our veterans. In fact, on the equity note, the Congressional Black Caucus has stated that the Davis-Bacon Act has been instrumental in bridging the wage gap for disadvantaged sectors of our society. What we're looking at here, what I would like to suggest is that we do this this is just taking us to a federal standard. Not looking to do above and beyond, is not looking to make extra complications, but utilize the federal standards for these wages and credentials. So it's not going, again, it's not going above and beyond. This is us adopting what is already established with other types of contracts. So with that, as you might expect, I am in support of moving this forward. And if there is additional direction from council, then we can give the city attorney and his team time to be able to vet the legal possibilities with this. So with that, I will open it back up to council here. Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. I would be interested in moving this forward as well.
Thank you, Councilmember. Would any other member of council like to chime in? I do believe we have sufficient for direction. Councilmember Shimoni.
I just want to make sure I am in favor of us moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate your consideration in this matter. With that, as I do believe this brings us to agenda item number 12, our public participation. Ms. Salzberg, do we have any general public participants at this time?
Not tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, down to agenda item 13, our informational items to from mayor, council, and city manager, and future agenda item requests. Well, let's start with Vice Mayor. Do you have anything for us tonight?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I have a request of staff that when we receive the presentation on all of our planned pedestrian and bicycle facilities, all the projects that are upcoming, can you also address how much funding is available through the transportation tax? And also, can you please address Prop 419 and any discretion that the city may have regarding the allocation of those dollars? Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I do say Mr. Barrett says yes, and thank you for helping to add that to the discussion here in the coming weeks. All right, Councilmember Aslan.
I have nothing new for tonight.
All righty, Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, this week I went to the Metro Plan meeting and the Transportation Commission meeting. So that's the main things I did out of the ordinary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended the Metro Plan meeting last week, and I just want to share with Mayor and Council, as well as the listening public, that the Metro Plan Greater Flagstaff Regional Project Assessment that was presented last year, 2020, has identified as top 1 priority pedestrian and bike projects in terms of urgency, multimodalism, magnitude, regional impact, finding opportunity, and long-term need. In fact, there's a funding that was a federal funding that was sought and won in terms of 5.6 million for pedestrian and bike project, not only within Flagstaff but throughout the metropolitan planning FMPO jurisdiction, which includes pretty much the entire county. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. The Alternative Response Group met this morning, and of which you were a part of, along with our Vice Mayor, and with different staff members and different community member partners. We had a good discussion about the alternative response, and just kind of just discussing general steps forward. I'm not sure how much there really is to report on that meeting today to this larger group, but I just want to let everyone know that that group met and had a good discussion. The 911 diversion group for mental health calls with Teros and the CRN, the Crisis Response Network, met yesterday. And we had just a good update, as we typically do, on the calls and working through kinks. Shout out to Katie Brandis at the dispatch center for all of her hard work and within the city in helping us dispatch. What I'm hearing is that our dispatchers are getting creative and trying to help people connect to the CRN for these additional resources that they can be helped with. Last week, there was a very powerful candle vigil for Joanna Wheaton, who is a community member who passed in that recent bicycle tragedy. And it was a very powerful event. And yeah, it was good to see a lot of you there. And tomorrow night at, let's see, 6 to 7:30 p.m. there is a meet in the street. I believe it's the last one, which is a partnership effort with the county and specifically Supervisor Vasquez, Geronimo Vasquez, to discuss the concerns and just give an update to the community about the potential for flooding and mitigation of the museum fire. And so that's at 6 to 7:30 at the Peak School parking lots. For anyone in the community that wants to join us, please do. And then bicycle infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure. Thank you for bringing that up, Vice Mayor. I know that there's a petition coming our way, so I think that petition is going to be worthwhile of our attention, and I look forward to our discussion with the community present through that petition's points that it outlines. I was at the farmers market last Sunday helping to raise funds for the victims and individuals involved, along with collect signatures. And yeah, there is a lot of support. This is one of those topics that rises above politics and unites the community. And there is a lot of desire to see change occur sooner than later, not a year out, not 2 years out, not a 5-year plan, but this month. And I do have some ideas and things I'm working towards. So looking forward to working on all that with you, council and staff and the community. And then lastly, there is a House Bill 2544 titled Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Study Committee, of which the state has moved forward in funding it with $1,250,000 has been appropriated to establishing this committee And I was hoping to get involved, or at least apply to be involved with that committee. But council, I need your support and approval to allow me to represent us down in that way. So I was asked to bring it up here and see if I can get your all support. I'm not too sure, city manager, how the best way is to collect that support, but maybe folks could email you, or city manager, you could email the council and kind of gather support. But I'm really intrigued about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. I think it's a very interesting technology that is revolutionary. To me, it's kind of like the internet. If the internet was two dimensionals, I believe blockchain is 3D in its own way, and it's going to just blow this world away. And it already is starting to, with a lot of government starting to take this on. Anyways, I'm really curious to see what comes out of this committee, and I'd love to be involved with that the most that I can be. So with your support, council, I would love to do that on our behalf. And Mayor, that's all I had. Good meeting tonight. Well done, everybody. And I really appreciate everyone's work.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have anything new tonight. Thanks for a great meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember. Just a few things. I want to mention we had my first office hours last Friday, and I'm looking forward to doing this once a month. Right now out in Wheeler Park, and anyone is welcome to come and chat with me about anything. We also have 15-minute slots if you'd like to sign up, and I'm sure individuals who sign up on the schedule get first priority, but happy to chat with anyone who shows up. And I'll be holding those once a month on Fridays, and I'll keep everyone attuned to that. Couple other things I did want to mention as we look into the pedestrian and bicycle improvements needed. I had remembered and looked it up again about a city in Iceland in 2017 decided to take their crosswalks, some of them, and paint them so they look three-dimensional. And it has shown to really slow traffic. Other other cities have started to adopt this across the globe. I know the city engineer is probably not going to like me for suggesting it, but maybe. But there may be an interesting way where we can use art in a manner that can make people slow down if they see it looking like a three-dimensional crosswalk lines, etc. So I'd like to just throw that idea out there for consideration in general, especially as we prep for the meeting in a couple weeks regarding this and a larger update from city staff. Aside from that, also, I wanted to mention, because I've been speaking with a few of our elderly community in town, and this will probably be something, to bring up with the Housing Commission, but wanted to get the idea out there. So we have many elderly in our community that are not to the point where they need to be entering a nursing home, but are lacking in mobility and a lot of the things that need to get done around the house, shopping, etc. And there's programs that are rolling out in other cities where they have, for example, a college student who gets to stay in their house for free, let's say a nursing student, social work student, helps around the house, gets the groceries, and then also reduces their rent, or they get free rent, something to that effect. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that idea out there, that maybe that's worth consideration to help with some of our housing needs, as well as help some of our elderly with their mobility issues, and if potentially a program or something to that effect. Just throwing out ideas here, but I think they're worthy of our consideration. So thank you, and I think that's about it that I have for this evening. City Manager, did you have anything for tonight?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening.